The Madness of Hamlet by Collin Healy,
Ryan Foley, and Kevin Mikuls.
Hamlet's return from madness to sanity. The timeline of Hamlet. In Act 1, Horatio and Hamlet meet the ghost of Claudius. In this act, we see a lot of Horatio and Hamlet's friends talking to Hamlet about the ghost, and Hamlet's first encounter with the ghost of Claudius, in which Hamlet learns that Claudius is the murderer of his father, and he begins to plot his vengeance. In Act 2, Hamlet approaches Ophelia, and he talks to Polonius. In this act, you get a lot of things varying from Polonius' speech to Ophelia and Laertes' speech to Ophelia to Hamlet's going to visit Ophelia and his almost seemingly madness in how he acts and talking to her. In Act 3, Hamlet visits his uncle Claudius. In this act, you see a lot of confrontations between Hamlet and Claudius. We said that this act sort of marks the turn from Hamlet's madness to his sanity. This is kind of the first time where you start to see his words and actions maybe a little more calculated and showing sanity more than it had in the previous acts. In Act 4, Hamlet is sent to England. Claudius and Laertes plot against Hamlet. So this act, there's definitely some times where it shows that Hamlet is sane and that a lot of what he's doing is very calculated and meaningful. One of the quotes that we use in this act, we will show that although it may at first glance seem insane or mad, the true meaning of the quote, he's actually sort of going along with this idea that he is crazy and mad to get an upper hand against Claudius and Laertes, and how the way he sort of manipulates this idea that he is mad into sort of an advantage for him against Claudius and Laertes. In Act 5, we sort of talk about that there was a duel between Hamlet and Laertes, and we see all of the main characters in the play die. And so in this act, there's a lot of definite examples of Hamlet being sane and showing that what he is saying is definitely logical and his actions definitely have some meaning behind them. So I think overall we believe that the best way to explain this play is that Hamlet is originally going from madness from when he learns about his father's death, and even before then, to more sane insanity when by the end of the play, when the duel between Hamlet and Laertes occurs.
In Act 1, Hamlet is seen as insane, and in the quote by Horatio, he's attempting to convince Hamlet not to chase the ghost, which might deprive your sovereignty of reason and draw you into madness. Think of it. As he believes it would cause him to become insane, but speaking with the ghost actually temporarily brings Hamlet out of his insanity, as you can see in the quote, "I, thou poor ghost, while memory holds a seat in this distracted globe, remember thee." Hamlet realizes his goal is now to remember and avenge his father's death, and he now has a purpose, and this temporarily at least will bring Hamlet out of his madness, as he knows what he needs to do in life, rather than just sulking around.
In Act 2, Scene 1, you see that Hamlet is still very much insane. He comes into Ophelia's room, and you see in this quote, "My lord, I was in my sewing closet. Lord Hamlet, with all his doublet, all unbraced, no hat upon his head, his stockings fouled, ungarrotted, and down-gived to his ankle, pale as his shirt, his knees knocking against each other, and with a look so pious in purpose, as if he had been loosed from hell, to speak of horrors, he comes before me." You see that Hamlet is still crazy, and Ophelia thinks so when she is talking to her dad. Later, her dad, Polonius, comes to talk to Hamlet, and you see that he's very much insane when he is talking to Polonius, a man he obviously knows and does not recognize him in the scenes. Polonius says, "Do you know me, my lord?" Hamlet, "Excellent well, you are a fishmonger." This shows that Hamlet really does not have any concept of where he is and has no understanding of who he's talking to.
As we see in Act 3, Hamlet begins by saying, "A villain kills my father, and for that I, his sole son, do the same villain send to heaven." Now in this quote, we see Hamlet sort of acknowledging that as the sole son of his father, it is his duty and responsibility to take out vengeance against the person who was his father's murderer, and in this case, his uncle, or Claudius. We said that this sort of quote was sort of one of his upcomings into sanity rather than madness. We believe this to be true because of the way his words seem to flow much more smoothly and his ideas seem much more natural rather than forced and almost, insane. The way Hamlet talks, by saying, "A villain kills my father, I, his sole son, do the same villain send to heaven." The way he words it is much more normal, and something we might expect from someone that is sane.
In Act 4, King Claudius is extremely scared of Hamlet, especially after hearing about Hamlet's murder of Polonius. He says, "His liberty is full of threats to all." A truly madman would not be as much of a threat to the throne as would a man whose intentions are carefully planned out. Hamlet, when he's told he's being sent to England, says as he's leaving, "My mother, father, and mother is man and wife. Man and wife is one flesh, and so, my mother, come for England." He is actually sane because he's lying to the king and queen, and he's actually planning in his mind and he knows that they're going to kill him in England, and he knows that he will instead put a letter that will cause the death of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. He also is mocking King Claudius with his talk of different family members, as Claudius said to him in Act 1, "My nephew and my son."
In Act 5, you see Hamlet being more sane than ever. In his quote, "Who does it then? His madness, if to be so. Hamlet is of the faction that is wronged. His madness is poor, Hamlet's enemy." He realizes that he might be a little bit crazy, but it's a paradox because if you realize that you're crazy, you might not truly be mad, because a truly sane person would not have that forethought and understanding of themselves to realize that they might need some help. This shows that Hamlet is sane and that he is no longer crazy before his death. Thanks for listening, folks. We've been great.